I love it, baby. I love the hobnob with the elite or hanging the hood. Either way.
All right. So let's get started. So welcome to Black Girl Tired Book Talk. I am your host, Storm. Tonight is one of the moments where we give flowers while they are still here. I am beyond honored to welcome a literary icon, a cultural architect, a woman who has shaped Black storytelling across generations. Our guest is the national best-selling author of more than 53 books across adult fiction, teen fiction, nonfiction, and historical fiction. Her work has crossed from page to screen with Let the Church Say Amen, adapted into a film directed by Regina King, produced by T.D. Jakes and Queen Latifah, becoming one of the BT's highest rated programs. Her stories continue to resonate across TV One, bookstores, classroom, churches, and living rooms. She is an NAACP Image Award winner, an inductee of both the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame and the Texas Literary Hall of Fame, a journalist, an editor, a professor, a mentor, a publisher, a cultural historian, and the co-founder of the Brown Girls Books, a publishing company that continues to uplift fresh Black voices. And beyond the accolades, she is a storyteller who understands the weight and responsibility of telling our stories with truth, complexity, tenderness, and power. Please welcome the phenomenal ReShonda Tate. I said it right, ReShonda,
You
right?
did. You did.
Okay.
I'm clapping for myself.
So, okay, let's get into this. You built a powerful career in journalism, anchoring, reporting, editing, shaping narratives rooted in truth. What was the emotional and creative shift like when you moved from reporting real life stories to crafting fictional ones? What did fiction allow you to explore that journalism didn't?
Yeah, so the first part of my career, I loved, just sticking to the facts by day and then coming
Mm-hmm.
home and just making some stuff up at night. So the fiction was actually kind of my release. I couldn't make up stuff in my day job. And so I would work and stick to the facts and then come home and just let my imagination run free. But after a while, after 50 plus books, that kind of started getting old and I wanted something different. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
discovered historical fiction. And that actually got me to be able to blend the best of both worlds.
I like that. So, having worked in the newsroom where objectivity is often expected, how did you learn to protect your authentic Black voice when you began publishing fiction that centered Black families, Black faith, Black flaws, Black humanity?
I always have believed in speaking up. There are
Mm-hmm.
times when I was working in the newsroom and I'd see them cover a story on some Black kids that robbed a bank and they call them thugs. And then they
Mm-hmm.
cover some white kids that robbed a bank and they call them misguided youth.
Mm,
And I was the one in the newsroom going, excuse me. And a lot of times they weren't even cognizant of doing that. It was that
yeah,
implicit bias. And
yeah.
so I have just always been vocal and making sure our stories are heard, our stories are
Mm-hmm.
told. But what I do is I do the good and the bad and the ugly. So I'm gonna show flaws and all. And
Yeah.
I think that's what makes my stories, my historical fiction, authentic because I'm
Mm-hmm.
keeping it real.
Okay, okay. You've written under both ReShonda Tate and ReShonda Tate Bixley, spanning nonfiction and adult fiction, teen fiction, and now deeply researched historical fiction. What what has writing across genres taught you about your evolution as a storyteller?
Yeah, so I don't feel like I'm limited in a box. My mother used to always say when I was growing up, "You always doing something. Get somewhere and sit down." But that's because I'm gonna try it all. Because
Right.
the worst that can happen is I'll fail. The best that can happen is I'll succeed.
Mhm.
And so I've tried it all. And my first part of my career, I wrote under it's Rashonda Tate Billingsley because I was married.
Mhm.
I decided to shift direction genres. I shifted husbands, and so I dropped that Billingsley.
I'm dead. Woo! Well, that'll do it. So, when you step into historical fiction versus, let's just say, contemporary fiction, how does your research process change? Like, how do you emotionally prepare to carry the weight of real Black history responsibly?
Yeah, that this actually was harder for me than I thought because I
Mm,
am used to just telling people's story, and it's that made up part that I was having problems with because
hmm
I'm like, this is somebody real and I'm telling their story.
Right.
But yeah, I know this may sound crazy, but I was writing and I didn't want to tell some of the stuff that Hattie McDaniel went through because
Mhm.
Hattie loved love, and
She
Hattie was
did.
a she was a cougar before we knew what a cougar was. And I didn't want to tell all that. And Hattie came to me and said, if you're going to tell my story, tell it all.
hmm
And that's where from then on, I was like, I'm telling the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So writing historical fiction as a Black woman means confronting painful truths,
Yeah.
erasure, racism, misogyny, misogynoir, responsibility, respectability politics, um, survival. How do you protect your spirit while immersing yourself in these stories of history?
That's a great question, because especially with the Queen of Sugar Hill, with Hattie McDaniel, I was mad all the time. I'm sitting at my laptop, I'm mad. But what happened is Hattie taught me something. And as a writer, if you stop and you look and you listen, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm mad because she's at the back of the room for the Academy Awards. I'm sitting there yelling at my computer, mad because she's at the back of the room. But Hattie said to me, "What you mad for, ReShonda? I'm in the room."
Mm-hmm.
There's never been a black person but a janitor or a waiter, and I'm in the room. And that
Mm-hmm.
really just taught me to look at the glass half full. There are times when you got every right to be mad, but these people in history are teaching me what they went through is
Yeah.
inspiring me.
Yeah. That's damn, that's deep.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between writing Black history for entertainment and writing Black history for liberation.
Mhm.
So how intentional are you about shaping the narrative of our stories so that it doesn't become trauma consumption?
Yeah, and I'm learning. I'm writing. Even though I have all of these books, this is a new genre for me. And one of the things that is hard is you can get consumed by
Mm-hmm.
by the trauma. You
Mm-hmm.
can get consumed by all that she went through. One of the things that I would get all the time with Hattie is with people when they finish that book, they'd be like, "I need a sequel," because she just went through so much. And I'm like, she died. I got nothing after that. But it's because that trauma, we're filling ourselves with the trauma. So
Yeah.
with Love from Harlem, my new book about Hazel Scott, she still goes through it, but I was purposeful in making sure that the reader could see her resilience and could see her
Mm-hmm.
come out on the other side and not end on the trauma because we have so much of it in our day-to-day life. I don't sugarcoat it, but I want the reader to leave on
Yeah.
a good note.
So, do you feel a sense of ancestral responsibility when you write historical fiction, like you're speaking for those who weren't given a chance to tell their own stories?
Oh, absolutely. When I finished Hattie, I told my sister, I said, I think Hattie is pleased with this story. She told me she's pleased. And my sister said, I thought she was dead. I said, she is, but she still told me. Hazel was happy when I finished this book. My
Mm,
mother says I need to stop telling people that because I sound crazy. But I do. I feel a responsibility to introduce and reintroduce these
mm,
erased icons.
yeah.
And so that's what I feel like I'm doing. I can't tell you the number of people, and the book hasn't even come out yet with Love from Harlem, but the number of people that have never even heard of Hazel Scott. And
Mm,
so that's to me that, my purpose is being served.
mm. So, you write teen fiction as well.
Hmm.
So, Black teens often grow up without seeing themselves reflected fully in literature, especially outside of trauma narratives. What responsibility do you feel when you write for Black youth?
I really want them to see all our totality, see
Mm-hmm.
things that they are capable of. I want them to see again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I want them to see that there's no limitations. It's
Mm,
funny because I've always wanted to be an anchor, an author, and an actress. And
mm,
I remember one of my counselors in high school, the 10th grade, said you can't be all those things because you need to choose one. So she was putting these limitations on me. So in my writing, I try to show there are no limitations. And I
right.
wish I could find that counselor because I'd say, "How you like me now?"
Oh, damn. Um, so, when you're crafting teen characters, how intentional are you showing Black joy, ambition, softness, and emotional complexity rather than limiting the narratives? Because when it comes to Black kids, they like to limit the narrative basically to a fantasy type aspect.
Yeah, I had one in my house with my son who was trying to rap, and I'm like, dude, you live in the suburbs. And my daughters had an argument, and one of them told the other one, "That's why you look like Picasso." I'm like, what? See, y'all wouldn't survive in the hood. Calling somebody, you think that's an insult? But it's because they look and they read these things that show and glamorize the life in the hood. I don't belittle anybody with life in the hood. That's how I grew up. But I want them to see the whole picture, the totality of it all. And that's what I'm intentional about.
Mm. So, traditional publishing has historically undervalued Black women's voices while profiting from Black culture. What are some realities of navigating that system that new authors may not be prepared for?
The reality is we will read them, but they won't read us. I
Mm,
had a book, and it had I was on a white conservative radio show for something else, and he asked me about my book, and he said, "Oh, it sounds interesting. Can I read it?" Because it had a black woman on the cover. So my response was, "Can you read? Because if you can read my book." But
yeah,
because it had a black person on the cover, they automatically assume, "Oh, that's not for us." We don't look at white books and say, "Oh, I can't read that." So
right.
that is something that is ongoing. It is something that authors have been fighting for years.
Mm, mm. Have you ever felt pressure to make your work more palatable for mainstream audiences? And how do you like maneuver that bullshit?
The one of the hardest things I ever did, I had my teen fictions were being made into a movie, an offer to have them made into a movie by a major company. It
Mm,
was a huge deal. I was super excited about it, but at the last minute, they came and said, "We want to make these four main characters." It was four girls, black girls,
mm,
one interracial. They said, "We want to make them all white." And that floored me, because what that is saying to these people, these young readers, we don't value your blackness. And
yeah,
I walked away from that deal. It hurt my heart, but I said I cannot say to my young readers, your color isn't good enough
yeah.
for it to make to the big screen.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I have one last question before I start getting into your books. How do you balance gratitude for opportunity while still holding the industry accountable for equity?
That is an excellent question. One of the things that I try to do is not have a pity party for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always somebody that's going to have more who you may feel like doesn't deserve it. I try to take what I get, and I'm grateful for it, and I work for it. I may fuss because my publisher isn't doing A, B, and C, but I'm still going to do A, B, C, and D. And what I found in the industry is they don't get on my train, but my
Mm-hmm.
train doesn't stop. And what ends up happening is they're looking and saying, "Okay, she's not stopping. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go back and get on her train." And
Yeah.
I've seen people along the way that's like, "Well, they're not gonna send me on tour, so I ain't going, or they're not gonna do this, so I'm not going." And we shooting our own self in the foot with that.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Let the Church Say Amen. Let's start right there. So Let the Church Say Amen explores like family fractures, faith, hypocrisy, addiction, generational expectations, and so much more.
Yeah.
What inspires you to write such an honest portrayal of church culture without romanticizing it?
Yeah, because I wanted to just kind of show this was a preacher, but this could have been any man in any job who gives everything they have to that job because he gave
Mm,
everything he had to the church that he had nothing left for his family. And
mm,
so I wanted that message to come across. And I wanted to show the challenges of it all.
mm,
We hear a lot about the preacher's kids, but I interviewed first ladies, I interviewed preacher's kids just to make sure I was accurate in that story. Now
mm,
that is actually the book that put me on the map, but I also got cussed out a whole lot in that book. I got so much hate from that book
mm.
because the holy rollers, as I call, didn't like what I was writing. They didn't like the fact that I wrote about Christians having sex because Christians don't have sex, right?
Lord Jesus.
Uh, so they didn't like the fact that I used some profanity because
Mm,
Christians ain't supposed to curse. But the crackheads I know don't say pass the pipe, gosh darn it. The crackheads
right.
I know cussing. And so that's who I
Yeah.
have in my book.
So you also explored like enabling, how can I put this? It was deeply layered with the whole premises of prioritizing the church over the family.
Hmm.
What conversations did you hope that Black people would have with themselves
Yeah.
after reading this book?
Yeah, I really wanted them to see one, I give everything to a job that at the end of the day it is not going to be there to help me on my sick bed. It's not going to, they will
Mm-hmm.
have my position filled up before I even get my obituary done. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really wanted to show that to just kind of refocus the family. I
Mm-hmm.
also wrote about, the dynamics of a dysfunctional family and trying to heal through that. So those are some of the things that I wanted to get with that.
Okay, so how did seeing Let the Church Say Amen transition from page to screen, especially under the direction of Regina King and T.D. Jakes and Queen Latifah, shift how the industry viewed you and your work? Did it open doors that hadn't been accessible before?
Absolutely, because Hollywood is reactive and not proactive,
Mm,
and so then I had movie offers come in after that. I got a lot of attention because of that book and that movie, and the
mm-hmm,
fact that I was involved in it. Regina is phenomenal. We got to be good friends from it, but it was just a great feeling to see my words come alive on the screen, and then
mm-hmm,
have these actors I knew and loved and respected say, "Am I doing your character justice?"
mm.
So it was a phenomenal experience.
So let's go to the Queen of Sugar Hill. Um, Hattie McDaniel's story sits at the intersection of brilliance and burden.
Yeah.
And being the first Black woman to win an Oscar while simultaneously being criticized for the roles that she played. So, how did you emotionally approach telling her story with nuance rather than judgment?
Yeah. So I judged Hattie. Full disclosure, I judged her before I wrote this book. I was one of those that did not like Gone with the Wind, did not like Mammy. And it was my grandmother who loved Gone with the Wind and wanted to know why I didn't like her. I was like, because she playing this maid. And my grandmother said, but she playing a maid and I am a maid. and
Mm,
and so it was at that moment I was like, and I loved my grandmother. And my grandmother put 8 kids through college on that maid's salary. And my
mm,
grandmother said it was 1939. What did you expect her to play, Scarlett O'Hara? And that point, I took off the 20th century lens, the
mm,
21st century lens, and I looked at her in the time that she was. The reason my
mm,
grandmother loved her was because she ran the plantation. She
mm,
ran every time she played a maid role, and so
mm,
she took the best that life gave her at that time,
mm,
and made it into something that benefited her. And
mm,
so once I started looking at it through a different lens,
mm,
I fell in love with her.
mm. The book explores how she wasn't fully accepted by white Hollywood nor embraced by parts
Right.
of the Black community.
Right.
What does that tension teach us, in your own words, about respectability, politics, and survival?
Yeah, she couldn't find a side of the fence to get on. Black
Mm,
people didn't like her, white people didn't like her. And so she got to, at first she was trying. And then she got to a point where she said, I'm going to love me. They don't have to like me. They don't have to like me, but I'm going to love me. And eventually people started falling in because of that. But she stood her ground because she knew that she had been given this opportunity. And as the NAACP wanted her to do, they wanted her to just say, no, I'm not playing those roles. And her famous line, I'd rather play a maid for $700 than be a maid for $7.
That part. Through Hattie's relationships, marriage, activism, and ambition, we see a woman um who is so complex but not sanitized, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Why was it important for you to preserve her humanity rather than polish her legacy?
That's a good one. You know, I wanted her to people to see that she was more than Mammy. That was one of the big things for her. When she moved into her mansion, she loved to
Mm-hmm.
cook, so she would always wear her apron, but she would never answer her door in her apron because
Mm,
she wanted people to see I play a maid, but I'm not a maid.
right.
And I wanted that to be the essence of her story, that she was more than Mammy. I
Mm,
had no idea that we can live wherever we want to live, black people and brown people, because of
mm,
Hattie McDaniel. How do I
mm,
not know that? I'm an educated black woman. Why is
mm,
that something that was left out of my history lesson? So
mm.
it's things like that that made me more determined than ever to tell her story.
So what was it about Hattie McDaniel, uh, that made you say, hey, her story must be reclaimed,
Yeah.
retold, and honored through literature? You on mute.
Hattie's story
Mm-hmm.
was I think what it is Hattie's story was one where people didn't know the full scope of it. People just dismissed her because she played this maid. And the more I researched, the more I discovered, I was like, this is someone that everybody needs to know about. And
Mm.
so that's what I was wanting to make sure that we got across. And that's what got to me the most was this was someone that people needed to know she was more than Mammy. They needed to know her real story.
Now, I want to dive into your newest book that's going to be coming out January 26th. Am I correct?
27.
27.
Mhm.
Um, and y'all, its pre-orders are up.
Yes.
With Love from Harlem. First, before I start with the questions, who is Hazel Scott?
Hazel Scott is a civil rights pioneer, a jazz prodigy. Again, someone else that I didn't know about. She was Oprah before Oprah, Alicia
Mm,
before Alicia. She's the first black woman to ever have her own syndicated talk show. And at the time, she was the biggest jazz singer and married to Adam Clayton Powell Jr. They were the celebrity couple of the country. I mean, bigger black or white, they were the most well known. And she ended up losing it all because they deemed her a communist because she spoke
mm.
up.
Damn. So my questions are going to be based off the synopsis that I read.
Okay.
Um, so in the synopsis, you basically was saying that Hazel Scott was like this brilliant, bold, politically outspoken, um, wasn't willing to shrink herself,
Right.
even with the cost of her career. What parallels do you see between Hazel's journey and the experience of Black women creatives today?
You know, one of the things that a lot of us do is we're scared to speak up
Mm,
because there's so much at stake that we could lose.
mm,
And one of the lessons that I take away from her is that she was like, okay, I'm going to take my chances. When they
mm,
deemed her a communist, she could have just sat back and cried. She said, no, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to
mm,
fight. And I think that's one of the things I loved about her is that fight, no matter what the cost was. I also love that she was a star, a shining star. When she married Adam Clayton Powell Jr., he was a star too, but she was
mm,
bigger. However, what happens when two stars shine bright, one is bound to dim. Why is
mm,
it always the woman? Why
mm,
is it always a black woman? And so I really
mm.
wanted to explore that.
So the relationship between Hazel Scott and Adam Clayton Powell Jr., that what you're just saying, it like explores the ambition, the ego, the sacrifices of a woman for a man, and gender expectations.
Yes.
So what conversations do you hope readers have about love and power after reading this book?
Yeah, I really hope that they'll look at themselves and see, am I dimming my light? I
Mm,
love this man, I love my family, but am I dimming my light so they can shine? And I
mm.
know that sometimes, marriages are a balance, but you want to make sure that you are not shrinking so that someone else can grow and flourish.
And that's something that Black women tend to do because we want to take
Yep.
care of everybody
Yep.
and we don't want anybody to feel bad for themselves. But and in the same token, we make ourselves feel bad and have a ton of regrets.
Exactly. Exactly.
So the novel centers artistry and activism and emotional cause. Do you feel that Black women are often expected to choose between greatness and
Mhm.
peace? And how does Hazel's story challenge that specific narrative?
Yeah, I mean, when Adam meets her, she was a jazz singer. She was in a
Mhm.
club. So the audacity to then come and say, "Okay, you're my wife now. You don't need to be in a club," and that's where you met her. And
Mm.
now she needs to be at home. But that's not who she was. And
Right.
so I think again that it just goes back to we're so used to stepping back. Okay, let me help my man. And I firmly believe in being a helpmate, but
Mm.
at what expense? I
Yeah.
don't think that it should be at your own expense.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. So before I move on to the other questions, please inform everyone where we can get your book, where we can pre-order, and um, what you hope for the readers to get when they get it.
Yes, so my book is available wherever books are sold. You can get it online at your favorite bookstore. I'm urging people to support Black bookstores. It is available for pre-order. It hits on the 27th. I'm going on a big 21 city tour. And so if you're in one of those areas, I'm starting out in New York, Harlem, going to DC, Houston, Atlanta. I'm all over the place. And it's on my website, ReShondaTate.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I want to go circle back to Black and traditional publishing.
Mhm.
What do you believe traditional publishing still fundamentally misunderstands about Black readership?
That we don't read and that we don't show up.
Mm,
And so that is an ongoing battle. My publisher doesn't tour most of their authors anymore because they're like, oh, Black people, and they're not coming out. So you better believe it. At my tours, when I have 100 people in the room, I send them the pictures. I'm like,
mm,
what Black people? These look like Black people to me. And it really is an ongoing fight. But we can't give up because I can show you better than I can tell you. I'd much rather that they come on board and support us on the front end. But if they don't, then I'll just take it on the back.
mm. Do you think the industry values Black stories or simply profits from trends?
I think there are individual editors that value Black stories, but
Mm,
then they look at the dollars, and they look
mm,
at the fact that this book only sold 100 copies, and they're like, oh, I guess people don't really value Black stories. And we don't get as much of grace because a white
mhm,
book can sell 100 books and it's just a white book that sold 100 books. A Black book sells 100 books and it's indicative of all Black authors. That's a huge challenge that we face.
yeah. When one do it, we all do it type
Right.
mentality.
Hmm.
How can Black authors protect their voices while navigating corporate publishing, I guess, contracts? How can they maintain that voice?
You got to get professionals. You got to get attorneys. One of the kind of things we kind of do in our industry is like, oh, I can't afford an attorney, or I can't afford an agent. I don't want nobody taking a percentage of my money. But
Mm,
you really do need that expertise. I was that person with my first deal. My agent, I was like, oh, I don't want to pay her this money, and she ended up getting me what she was paid and then some. And she knew what she was doing. There were little things she was arguing about for the movie was the size of my name on the screen. I was like, lady, don't argue over that. But that makes a difference in how much you get paid later on. And so little
mm,
things like that I would have never known. And so there are things that you just don't need to skimp on, whether it's editing, cover design, or hiring legal professionals.
Yeah. So have you noticed differences in how black historical fiction is marketed compared to white historical fiction?
Yeah, again, it's that it's a limited audience. It's well, this black book didn't do well, so we're gonna pull all the rest of the black books. And the white community doesn't get that same type of scrutiny, and it's very
Mm,
disheartening.
yeah.
I look at there are times where you can look at a black book that does well, and then you try to compare it to the white book, and they have all of these reasons why. Well, it was Black History Month. Well, it was
Yeah.
instead of well, it was a good book.
Yeah. Yeah. So what role should major bookstores play in ensuring black literature is visible year round, not just during Black History Month, but
Yeah.
year round?
Again, it's going to come down to the customers because they're going to
Mm,
give the people what they want. And always tell people, make sure that you're requesting at these bookstores. Request
mm-hmm.
your favorite author's book to be on the shelf.
Yeah.
And after so many times, that's when the stores start listening. But what happens with us, we walk in, we see there are no blacks on the bookshelf. We walk out and we go tweet about it. We go post about it on Threads. And we vent there, and then we don't do anything else.
Ooh, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
That's the truth. So, what do you hope black literature looks like 10 years from now in terms of genre diversity, ownership, and the power we will have?
I really want us to support black businesses, black authors, and pass the word, not the book. There was somebody came up to me once and was like, "I'm your biggest fan. I love you. I bought your book and I passed it to 32 of my friends." And I was looking at them like I made $1. And at the end of the day, that's what the publishers are looking at.
Yeah.
Someone else in the comments said, ask your local library. The libraries, they're going off of what the people are asking for.
Mm,
And so it is really, you just have to be vocal. We've got to get away from coming home to tweet about it or coming home to vent about it on threads. You can still do that, but vent in the store as well.
I think people have fallen to the lines of shock factor
Yeah.
activist. That's what I call it.
Yep.
The more you can shock and awe somebody to have a conversation online, the less you are actually in the street making shit happen.
Exactly.
And I feel like we have come into an age where activism is lazy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And the only activism a lot of people know is how to shock people online with these what's the word I'm looking for? These confrontational type threads or
Mm-hmm.
posts and have these discourse for like 2 or 3 days,
Right.
but without substance that actually make action happen. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you could talk about it. I think people forgot the revolution won't or will be televised type thing.
Right. Right.
So I think that's where we at. Maybe it's because I'm older, or it's because it's just the younger generation has fell in line with the cyberness,
Yeah.
the computers, and that's all they like focus on instead of the activism being out in the streets. So that when they
Hmm.
see it out in the streets, they they are like, I'm not going out. It's too cold. I'm
Yeah.
not going. I'm not going. It's too far. I'm not doing that. But you have people in the civil rights movement walking.
Yeah. I mean, and then you'll tell. I told my daughter this one time because she said something about they got me messed up. I am not my ancestors. I'm like, no, you're not, because you lose your mind if your phone off for 6 minutes. So
Yeah.
no, you're not your ancestors. And so we got to get away from that, and we got to look at how Yes, we've come far. We still got a ways to go, and the fight is not over.
Yeah. I just want people to wake up.
Absolutely.
So what barriers, yeah, what barriers do you still want to see dismantled for the next generation of storytellers?
I want a more diverse readership. I love the fact that there are sci-fi lovers, there are romance lovers. We're not monolithic people, and so I love showing the world that there are blacks that love Bridgerton. There are blacks that love all kind of reading, and I hope that publishers get on that trend.
Mm.
I do not like that anything black is automatically urban. And so, I hope that we can get away from that, because urban is a negative. They look at when they say urban, it's automatically something negative. I hope that we can shift away from that.
For them to be in the literary space
Hmm.
and not to know that urban is just a backdrop is just
Exactly.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this: if you could go back and speak to the version of yourself just starting out, what wisdom would you give, and what advice should every new author hear today?
Don't let anyone put you into a box. When I tried to get in this business, I went in with all the no's, and so for me, the no's were stepping stones. I took those no's, and I built me a wall until I got to a yes. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's really what you have to do. If you can't get in through that front door, find a way to dig a tunnel, get in through a window, do whatever it takes.
I know that's right. So what's next for you? Like, you are doing so much stuff, like creatively, professionally. So what's is it more historical fiction, screen adaptations, new genres? What's next?
Yeah, so I love the historical fiction genre, so I'll remain in that genre. But I also am a screenwriter. So I have two movies. One is on Amazon Prime called the Christmas in the Friendly Skies. I wrote another one called Christmas with My Ex, and I love screenwriting, so I do that as well.
Okay, okay. So, what's the upcoming events? You told us about the tour that's happening, but what are the upcoming events appearances that you will have?
So I have New York on the 24th, DC on the 25th. Then the 26th, I have a virtual pre-publication party. So information about that is on my Facebook page and my Instagram. We're inviting everybody to join us virtually. It's free. Myself and Victoria Christopher Murray. We're just supporting each other. There will be a lot of different authors there, and it's just kind of a pre-publication party. And
Okay.
then I just go from there: Dallas, Atlanta, Savannah. I have a whole long list of places. Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay. You're gonna be busy.
I am.
So, where can readers once again purchase your books, and what is your official social media handles and platforms where people can stay connected with you?
Thank you so much. My website is ReShondaTate.com.
Mhm.
And then all my social platforms, Instagram is ReShonda_Tate. And then Facebook is at the real ReShonda Tate. Since somebody tried to steal my identity and sell some books.
Oh wow!
Yeah, tell me about it. But I'm active on social media, and I love interacting with readers because I am where I am today because of the support of readers.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get you out of here. I'm gonna do your intro. I mean your outro, and then we're gonna get out of here.
All right.
All right. So ReShonda, thank you for your legacy. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your discipline. Thank you for your honesty in storytelling. Thank you for creating a space for other Black women through your own publishing company.
Hmm.
Thank you for telling our stories with dignity, nuance, and truth. Your work is not just literature; it is a cultural reservation. Preservation. Um, it's a historical reclamation. It's an emotional healing. It's a Black excellence in motion. So if y'all haven't read her books, I need y'all to go ahead and fix that immediately. And y'all know how it goes with me. As I always say, stay loved, stay loud, and stay Black on motherfucking purpose.
Baby, I don't know where you be. Are you a journalist? I mean, you are
No,
phenomenal.
I just have a passion for interviews.
You are amazing. I just haven't had the depth of those questions. I mean, oh, girl, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome, and I look forward to reading your next book. I
All right.
look for. I already pre-ordered.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and you have a blessed evening.
You too, everybody.
All
Bye.
right.